There are stories about the secret stones and a forbidden act called Draconification. To swallow a secret stone is to become an immortal dragon, one blessed with eternal life. But there is still more to those tales. To become an immortal dragon is to lose oneself. That is why it is forbidden. I thought maybe this could lead to a solution, some way to transcend time. But if you have to sacrifice your heart and mind, sacrifice what makes you you.
The warning is clear. To swallow a secret stone turns one into a dragon, but at the same time transforms them, both in body and mind, into a sacred beast. It takes their very essence and turns them into a mythical creature. And yet, this explanation has been given for one of the dragons that now roams the sky, but what of the other three? Farosh, Dinral, and Nadra. Now that we know that these dragons were born of a sacred ritual where they swallowed secret stones in order to become something more than they ever were before, the question now becomes, who were they previously? The answer may not be what you expect. Hyrule is home to 3 elemental dragons and 1 light dragon. The dragons circle specific areas within the game, with Farosh circling the areas of the west, Dinral the north, and Nadra the east. They make their way through the skies and then into the depths of each area, and though there are no fights surrounding them this time, Link has the option to land on them and claim certain resources from them. In all honesty, the dragons are actually pretty missable in the game, and form no importance other than materials for upgrading equipment and fuse items. So, why are the dragons an important enough factor in this game to warrant their own theory video? Well, that much is explained in the Dragon's Tears cutscenes. The Dragon's Tears are found within geoglyphs that Impa is investigating with the aim of helping to find Princess Zelda. It turns out that out of everyone in the game trying to find her, and out of everyone that had potentially spotted the noble princess, the Impa was actually on the right lines, even though her idea was the most insane out of all of them. She proposes that the geoglyphs must have come from somewhere, and only came about as a part of the upheaval. On top of that, she states that there must be a connection to Zelda, and perhaps they can find something to do with the whereabouts of the Princess of Hyrule if we find something upon the geoglyphs. It turns out that as we explore the murals that indeed something is hidden away inside of them. A droplet of water that activates Link's ability on his arm, Recall, which then allows Link to see one of Zelda's memories. We see relatively early on that Rauru is not the only Zonai remaining, as is his sister Minoru, and she controls the power of spirits. Minoru, however, knows a lot more about the ancient rituals than her brother, and she explains to Zelda there may well be a way for her to get back to Link's time via a highly forbidden procedure named Draconification. As we reach the end of the memories, we find out that Zelda finds one way, and one way only, to get the Master Sword back to Link following the death of Sonia and the sacrifice of Rauru. She finds herself on her own in a world within the past, with only one way forward to destroy the evil that plagues her current time, to lose herself entirely, to forget about the one person that she loves the most, and to lose her earthly form and become an immortal creature. And so she does. She swallows the stone and is engulfed with light, as she clutches the Master Sword to her chest. The blade, bathed in pure light, restores itself while Zelda is transformed into the Dragon of Light. She soars the outskirts of the world in search of her hero, and when Link finally finds her, her tears are seen, shedding from her enormous blue eyes falling onto the world below. Her memories are taking the form of a drawing that gets etched into the land below her. Finally, he lands upon her back and pulls the Master Sword from her head. Ow. Which seems agonising for the poor princess/dragon hybrid, thus also bringing us a new rendition of the Pedestal of Time. This time just a little more animated than the stone block that sits upon the floor of the Temple of Time. This at least explains the Dragon of Light, but there are another 3 dragons that go by the name of the ancient golden goddesses. Farosh, or Faror, Nadra, or Nehru, and Dinral, or Din, were the original creators of the world, giving life to the earth by planting trees and plants, filling oceans, and creating the sun. This story is told to us within Ocarina of Time, with the 3 creators of the world then forging the Triforce, which was then gifted to the goddess Hylia. The goddess, the hero, and the villain would be reincarnated time and time again, as the Princess Zelda, Link, and a form of Ganondorf as per Demise's curse, meaning that every version of Zelda going forward would contain the Goddess of Light's power. But the Golden Goddesses were not a part of that reincarnation cycle. They were not designed in, from the days of old, to be reincarnated the same as the hero, the princess and the villain. And as they are literal deities, they may well have left the planet, but are still very much alive, without the notion of the secret stones or draconification. After all, they are deities. They're already immortal. They don't require an ancient ritual to become something else. No. Rather, these dragons are other creatures entirely. I mean, actually, let's go further into this. Not only would the goddesses not need to turn themselves into dragons for the sake of immortality, but draconification at some point in time was outlawed. It was forbidden. It was forbidden because of the fact that someone had already attempted it, maybe multiple people, and it ended in catastrophic effect. The swallowing of a secret stone was already something that had been done, and had caused something so terrible that the act of turning into a dragon via swallowing said tear-shaped stone was banned permanently from the world. Just take a second to let that sink in. Three people in history had tried this ritual. On top of that, we know that the only people that hold the stones are people that Rauru chooses himself. These people are either Zonai, such as himself or his sister, or from other races such as the Rito, Goron and Zora Sage, or his wife Sonia. Zelda is another who is chosen to hold one of the stones, but this is more via happenstance than her meaning to be given the Stone of Time. It's only because it drops from Ganondorf's husk that this happened, and then she picks it up and is cast into the void by Sir Dragmire, and that's when we see her power infused with the stone. Ganondorf only happens upon one because he starts a war and kills Sonia, which leads to her stone being in his possession. So, what does this all mean? As the first king of a recognised Hyrule in this time period, laws and rules would have been passed through Rauru. This means that if he made the swallowing of secret stones a forbidden act, then those that initially swallowed the stones in order to ensure a rule being made about it would have been active or alive during Rauru's reign, as it were. This means that the rule surely is relatively new, and that one of two things happened. 3 members of Rauru's council betrayed Rauru prior to becoming sages, and there were in fact 10 secret stones, 3 as dragons and the remaining 7 as sages. I am not counting Zelda's stone in that, by the way, as it would appear as if this stone should not actually be within Rauru's time period. It was dragged forward in time by Ganondorf and the sealing process. Or Rauru or Minoru enforced 3 of their own to attempt draconification in order to better understand the process. So, before jumping into stories of betrayal, I'd just like to thank you all for watching this so far. And if you haven't already, please consider getting involved. The community on this channel is phenomenal and I love seeing all of your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe also so that you can keep up with all of my latest Zelda theories. Shameless plug aside, who betrayed who and what? Looking at this in the most obvious light, 3 characters from possibly 3 different races, hence the elemental nature of the dragons and their obvious affinity to certain locations, were turned into dragons and lost their true selves. This would mean that someone connected to the area best known with fire, the Gorons of maybe Old Gorondia, someone connected to the watery depths of Zora's domain, and someone hailing from the desert must all have swallowed their sacred stones. It's pretty easy here to assume that the very first sages of fire, water and lightning all draconified, if that's a thing. But why? What are the motivations behind these guys deciding to give up on the very essence of their being? And the simple answer to that is that they all munched down on their elemental stones without having a clue of what it would do to them. They were told by someone, a legend perhaps, that it would grant immortality. This I could see from the Gerudo tribe. They've been obsessed with immortality and were in league with Ganondorf come this point in the game. Or save for a very few of them who saw that even Ganondorf had gone too far this time. The Zora have long admired legend and have built statues and carved rock with their story upon them. And it would be easy to see them want to make more legends. And what better way than the Zora who could not die? But what of the Gorons? Well, the Gorons, despite their makeup being entirely of sentient rock, do not live as long as you would think. None of them in Breath of the Wild remember the Great Calamity, inferring that their lifespan is not enough to cover that gap in time. The gap between the Great Calamity and the latest calamity in Breath of the Wild is 100 years, which would mean that the Gorons' life expectancy must be somewhere between 80 and 90 years. They live a relatively simple life, eating all the rock they can manage while creating little mini rockmen to take their places in the future. And just how they go about this is a whole nother matter. But what about these guys? Are these just failed attempts at the bloodlines of the Goron continuing? All that aside, and those are some seriously fun questions for another day, the Gorons are really simple creatures. They may not yearn for eternal life, but they may yearn to keep Death Mountain safe so that the dark cloud will never appear above it again. So that possibly explains the motive, and the means as they were given the stones by Rauru. But where was the opportunity? The sages that Rauru seems to keep close to him have all been named as the original sages, the very first ones. So if there were sages before this, then how did Minoru know that the act of Draconification was forbidden? Why does she know so much about this topic? What actually is her role in all of this? Was Minoru really just researching, or does she know an awful lot more than she lets on? I mean, she is the older sister of Rauru, but we don't know how long she predates him by. She also can separate her body from her spirit, and she is the Sage of Spirit, and this is shown quite obviously by her role as the Puripad within the game. Her ability to detach her soul from her own body is fascinating, and could lean in awesomely to some DLC somewhere down the line. But as it stands, that information is what we have about Minoru. She is the Sage of Spirit, her power is having out-of-body experiences. She just indicates that the story that we saw at the start of this episode is just that, a story. Or was it? Who could ever be mad at this guy? Look at him. He's part goat, part human, part dragon, and all adorable and wise. I should have mentioned the wise part. He may be all of those things, but one thing he is not is a good leader. Yep, I said it. Rauru is actually pretty rubbish, in fact, as the leader of the sages. Pretty rubbish. I mean, he tries, but in the midst of him trying to get rid of evil, he essentially allows Zelda into Ganondorf's grasps for long enough for him to use a cloned version of her as a puppet. He gets all of the sages killed, including his own Hylian wife. And then when all is lost, he sacrifices himself in the name of getting a sword to one person, with the hope of this hero being the one to stop Ganondorf. Oh, and he has his sister plant a pretty tasty seed. See, I've touched on this numerous times. Something is only forbidden if something is so heinous as an effect of something else occurring, that it is deemed that no individual in the world must ever do it again, to prevent harm to the world or the peoples in the world. Someone had to forbid that action, the swallowing of a simple stone, and had to lock those stones inside of the lotus flower that we find within the Forbidden Temple, so that no one accidentally swallows a stone that appears on the surface to be way too big to fit down someone's esophagus. It wasn't just a choking hazard, but a threat to the world in some respect. The person who swallows that stone loses themselves completely, which, if in the wrong hands, could be absolutely catastrophic. Rauru knew this. That's why he put the stones only somewhere he could access. The art was forbidden, and why he intentionally led Zelda to become a dragon and lose herself. He knew that this was indeed the only way to get the broken sword back to Link. And all of the while, he acts like he knows nothing about any of this. I call shenanigans, good sir. First of all, Rauru, answer me this. If only Minoru knew that the stones were forbidden from being eaten, and creatures turn into dragons from swallowing these stones, then why are the stones only accessible to you, good sir? Also, if you didn't know about the legends of Draconification, then why are you only trusting the stones to those who pledge their allegiance to you, as if you know the danger that comes from them? I'm sure a slight gale being blown, or being able to turn yourself into a ball of magma, is nowhere near the effect of being able to turn yourself into a dragon, so I'm not sure that's why they've been sealed. Finally, Rauru, I want this answer. If Draconification is that forbidden, then why even allow Minoru to even mention it to an absolute abject stranger, no matter how virtuous she is? Because let's be honest, her clone has a whole freaking kingdom convinced that she is on the side of good, yet is setting out all of this evil in order to slow down or stop Link from gaining the power of the stones and the sages to be awakened. The mere mentioning of it to Zelda means by default that she's going to do it when all else seems lost. So you would have known, my friend. You would have known. Okay, now that I'm done cross-examining Rauru, let's explore just what this means. Rauru knew about Draconification and its risks before Minoru shocked him with the fact that the art of swallowing stones makes you lose your soul but grow a snake body. Rauru knew about the risks because he was the one who forbade it, which is why he played hard and loose with the rule for Zelda and almost led her down the path of it being her only choice, yet would not allow anyone else to munch on the secret rocks, and the reason is, he had seen what it did to the races of the kingdom firsthand. Rauru's hands are not clean. He and Minoru found scripture explaining the Draconification process. As Ganondorf's armies neared, he allowed some of his finest men, or women, or rock creatures, to swallow said stones. Sure enough, they became dragons. Sure enough, they lost themselves, and sure enough, they wreaked havoc on the world. Especially during the calamity, where they lost their tiny little dragon minds and become slaves to the malice. Dinral, Naedra and Farosh are inventions of a mad god. Someone who wants to not burn the world but test things as far as they possibly can go before they break, in order to rid the world of evil. That man is none other than Rauru. That is only backed up by the appearance of these dragons also. We see from Dragon Zelda, or the Dragon of Light, that the dragons tend to borrow attributes from their creature counterparts. This is evident with eye colour, ear shape, nose shape and hair colour all matching up with Princess Zelda. So let's take a look at the other three. Big, purple and yellow eyes. Massively long ears. Long flowing hair alongside a beard of sorts. Rounded snout. And tears drawn under the eyes similar to how the Sheikah and Zonai have their eyes. The ears alone are enough to draw comparison, and all three dragons, not one of them, but all three share exactly the same traits. They weren't alternate races after all. They were all Zonai. They weren't Goron, Zora or Gerudo. The original sages, the very original holders of the sacred stones, were Zonai, and all thought of the same plan to reach eternal life. These three, they took the stones despite being in the council of the Sage of Light, and swallowed them in order to live forever and cement themselves in Zonai lore, as it were. Rauru saw this happen. He knew of it, hence why it became forbidden, as Rauru cemented himself as the King of Hyrule. On top of all of that though, the King of Hyrule, in his infinite quest to remind people of just how forbidden this act was under his reign, would go on to build effigies all over his Hyrule of Dragons. These can be seen on the Sky Islands, and more notably than that, they are all over areas that have actually been deliberately obscured within the game. The Typhlo Ruins, the Forgotten Temple and the Zonai Ruins are all deeply hidden away, lost to the world save for one boy and his magical arm, and all are incredibly heavy with their use of dragons within their symbology. These ruins were built by the Zonai, and so were ordered by Rauru to do so. He had these ruins built in worship of a forbidden act. After all, if dragons are born by Draconification and the swallowing of the secret stones, and that act is heavily forbidden, then why are we worshipping the creatures that were forbidden? On top of that, we need to come into some real spoiler territory now, in order to really seal the fact that our loving leader Rauru is actually secretly a monster. If you have not played to the end of the game, skip right ahead now. Seriously, this section is all marked up, ready for you to just gloss over. This section will spoil elements of the game. During the duration of the game, you go through and activate geoglyphs, a series of runes etched into the floor of the world. It is found that these glyphs come from the tears of a dragon, one who regretted her actions in becoming a dragon and swallowing her secret stone. She regretted not getting to see Link again, not getting to protect her country and her peoples. Zelda has swallowed her secret stone and become a dragon, purportedly against the will of Rauru, who, let's face it, acted surprised about his sister, Minoru, knowing so much about the ritual. But we've already seen exactly why that's one big lie, or a writing inconsistency. But I'm not willing to call it that, seeing as Nintendo are absolute masters of misdirection. Note that Zelda is told in one of the scenes with Minoru that to become a dragon is to lose oneself. That is super important for later on. You collect her tears and see through the storyline about her journey into becoming a dragon. But in reality, this is laying seeds for something in the future to happen. That something happens at the dying embers of the game. Ganondorf, in his desperation to defeat Link after Link defeats him at the height of his power, swallows his secret stone and becomes a truly twisted dark dragon. He is huge and covered in gloom, making it near impossible to land on him. As he carries you up into the sky from the underground in his mouth, Zelda comes from nowhere and absolutely sideswipes him, forcing him to drop you while she goes on to rescue you. But this begs a whole extra question, because Zelda, or the Light Dragon, during this fight knows exactly what she's doing. She is fully sentient. She understands the ramifications of letting Link fall. She not only chases after Link when he drops, but she rescues him every single time. She also understands that she needs to be higher than Ganondorf in the sky in order for Link to leap onto him. Zelda has not lost herself. She very much has her own mind. It's like Rauru knew this when he had Minoru mention it. Because then as the fight is over, ethereal forms of Rauru and Sonia appear. They channel their time and light magic through the hero and onto Zelda, which in turn turns her from a dragon back into a human. Wait, what? Rauru and Sonia knew not only of the process prior to Zelda becoming a dragon, thus confirming that Rauru is a big liar pants on fire, but he also knew of a way of reversing the entire effect of the secret stones. And this was without the aid of Minoru to aid him, as her spirit had not yet passed through to where Rauru and Sonia reside in spirit form. They knew full well how to deal with the Draconification, meaning that potentially they had tried before. Maybe that dragon down by the Zonai ruins isn't an effigy after all. Maybe that's what they were studying. No, what Minoru was truly studying. What if they had attempted it but the reversal process failed because they didn't have the proper tools, i.e. Link, to channel their magic through? Instead of reversing the effect of the Draconification, they rendered the dragon down to nothing but bone, killing the dragon and therefore the person inside completely. While this is a stretch, and I get that, it makes way more sense than two creatures in essence with the power of gods, not even knowing about a forbidden art, only to be able to cure the effect on the first time of trying. Oh Rauru, you thought you had us all fooled. So there it is. Rauru knew a whole lot more than he let on. He allowed Zelda to learn of the Forbidden Act because he knew. He knew exactly what would happen when Zelda became the Dragon of Light. And that was because he had seen it all before, courtesy over more than likely of a prediction from his queen, Sonia, who has supreme powers over time, let's not forget. So with that, we're at the end of this theory. If you've enjoyed the ramblings of a madman, please consider subscribing and liking the video. And don't forget to drop a comment with your theories about Draconification. I'll see you next time. Bye!